The real news empowers us. It empowers us because it belongs to us. It doesn't receive any money, any corporate funding. It receives money from you, and it depends upon you because it belongs to you.
Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper won a temporary suspension of Parliament, delaying a vote which had been set to topple his Conservative minority government.
The Governor-General has agreed to prorogue Parliament. Last Friday, I asked Canadians to give us their opinions on the parliamentary situation. That feedback has been overwhelming and very clear. They want Canada's government to continue to work on the agenda that Canadians voted for, our plan to strengthen the economy. When Parliament resumes on January 26th, the first order of business will be the presentation of a federal budget.
Canada's opposition parties, the Liberals and the New Democrats, signed a coalition agreement on Monday, backed by the Bloc Québécois party, to form an alternative government after Harper's finance minister presented a fiscal statement which did not include an economic stimulus package. It also includes proposals that would revoke federal employees' right to strike, clamp down on pay equity, and cancel public subsidies for political parties, a move that would disproportionately benefit the ruling Conservatives. Under Canada's system of parliamentary democracy in the Westminster tradition, Harper had the option to ask the Governor-General, Michaëlle Jean, to suspend Parliament, an option he exercised.
This is a pretty unusual situation. I mean, prorogation is the formal term for ending a session of Parliament. So it's normally something that's done once Parliament has exhausted all of the legislation that it's been considering for a period of 1 year or the like. It's something that's introduced at the end of a session, not at the beginning. That's what's remarkable about the current situation. Harper, under the Constitution, has the right as Prime Minister to go to the Governor-General and request that the session be ended. As far as I know, that's never been done at the beginning of a parliamentary session in Canada. It's been considered that the Governor-General in Canada since 1926 simply acts at the behest of the Prime Minister. So whatever the Prime Minister requests, the Governor-General puts into action. The Governor-General does have powers, and in certain moments of political crisis or when circumstances are unusual, as they are now, the Governor-General might be called upon to exercise some independence of thought. The Governor-General had the option of refusing Stephen Harper's request for a prorogation precisely because this was occurring at the beginning of a parliamentary session, not at the end. That would have been politically controversial, and we've seen the extent to which Stephen Harper will go to make his case in terms of hauling out the heavy artillery of advertising campaigns and so on. Given that context, Michaëlle Jean, the Governor-General, thought that it was prudent to act on Stephen Harper's request. It is absolutely unprecedented for a Prime Minister to seek to avoid a non-confidence vote by requesting the prorogation of Parliament. One wonders, does this in itself create a precedent for the future where any Prime Minister who's fearing a surprise non-confidence vote or simply fears being defeated in the House of Commons in a minority government situation might seek the same option from the Governor-General? Today's events, or the events of the last week, have been absolutely disturbing and unprecedented on a whole series of fronts. Harper seems to be willing to go pretty much to any lengths to preserve his government. And in the process, it's tarnishing the institutions of parliamentary democracy and also raising questions about the longer-term impact of the strategy, especially as it regards Quebec, because Harper right now, his strategy seems to be, okay, I've gotten a reprieve through prorogation for the next 6 weeks or so, or 2 months, and I am going during this time to convince voters in Canada, in English Canada, that the problem with a coalition government is that the so-called separatists are going to be part of it, which is not entirely true. It's a distortion of the facts. And moreover, it isolates Quebec. And again, I think this seems to compound the current crisis that we're in. We're facing an economic crisis, we have a political crisis, and on top of that, Harper seems to want to create a national unity crisis.
Donate today and receive a new documentary film available to members of the Real News Network. The History of the National Security State with legendary author Gore Vidal. Bonus features of the DVD include an in-depth response to Vidal from ex-CIA analyst Ray McGovern, who served under 7 U.S. presidents, an exclusive interview with Colin Powell's former Chief of Staff Larry Wilkerson, and an insightful interview with oil policy analyst Antonia Juhas.
The news magazine of the screen. Living glimpses of history in the making.
Hollywood and Washington is a symbiotic relationship. They both deal with illusions. Reality doesn't often play much of a part. I think I saw through the myth of the Cold War almost from the beginning. I was a Washington political kid from a political family. Roosevelt first had radio because he had this great speaking voice and everyone liked to hear. Truman proceeded to break every arrangement that Roosevelt had set up for a peaceful coexistence. And Truman thought that it would be a good idea. Why not just stay armed all the time? And then he devised the national security state. You've got to go up and swear allegiance to the United States or else you're a commie. I mean, we had imported fascism. We get Dwight Eisenhower, who said that we have this great military industrial complex. It is a dangerous thing. And he said this is going to change everything. And the way our country's governed is going to change us politically. Along comes Jack Kennedy, who wanted to make his mark, believed in the Cold War. But he said in this kind of politics, it is the appearance of things that matters. I think everybody should take a sober look at the world about us. The national security state still exists, only it isn't communism anymore, it's terrorism. This is the most serious thing that has happened in the history of the United States. Knowledge is power. We need an honest news system.
We need the real news.
This is the sort of thing we can build right now without anyone else's permission from the government or from the business community. It's the power's in our hands.
If we're not going to sleepwalk into more wars, we think we need to start with a television news network that won't bow to pressure and has the courage to seek facts. And that means independent economics. And that's why we need you.
Make a tax-deductible donation now of at least $10 a month or a one-time give of at least $75. As a thank you for your support, we will send you the new documentary film, The History of the National Security State.